If you're watching this right now, don't drive alone tonight, because the man in this story thought he was safe. He thought it was just another late shift, another dark highway, another night by himself. But he wasn't alone, and by the time he realized that, the thing sitting behind him had already been waiting for hours. Let this be your warning. Check your backseat before it checks you. Ethan hated driving this late, but that night he had no choice. The construction site had run behind schedule. The rain had turned everything into mud, and he was the last one to leave after cleaning up equipment. By the time he walked across the empty parking lot, every light in the building was already shut off. His boots squished in the wet gravel as he unlocked his old Toyota, tossed his lunchbox in the passenger seat, and slumped behind the wheel. He shut the door and instantly felt it. A shift in the air, a heaviness behind him that didn't make sense. He sat still for a second. The sound of rain hitting the roof filled the silence. He glanced at the rearview mirror without meaning to, just a part of his routine. The back seat was dark, but darker than usual, like the shadows were thicker, heavier. He blinked, looked again. Nothing. Empty. He rubbed his face. "Stop being weird," he muttered, turning the engine on. The drive home usually took 40 minutes. Tonight, with rain swallowing the road, it might take an hour. He pulled out of the lot and onto the long, empty highway, gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The fog hanging over the road grew thicker and heavier, like it was trying to crawl into the car. Ethan turned the heater up. His fingers were ice cold, colder than they should have been. He rolled his shoulders, trying to shake off the tension, but halfway through the motion, he felt something behind him. Warm air, slow, damp, and unmistakably human, breathing on the back of his neck. He lurched forward, nearly swerving off the road. His breath hitched in his throat as he snapped his head around. The back seat was empty, completely empty. He stared for several seconds, his pulse banging in his ears. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. The only sound was the rain smacking the roof like 1,000 tiny fingers. He forced his eyes back to the road. "You're tired," he whispered. "Just tired." He didn't believe himself. Another few miles crawled by. The fog was so thick his headlights barely cut through it. Every shape outside looked warped, melted, almost human-shaped. Ethan leaned closer to the windshield without realizing it. That was when he heard it. A whisper from the dark back seat. So soft it could have been imagined. So close it couldn't have been. "Don't look." His stomach dropped. His hands stiffened around the steering wheel. His throat felt tight, like invisible fingers were pressing gently into it. He didn't turn around. He couldn't. His heart pounded with a violent rhythm. His breathing turned shallow. He stared straight forward, refusing to check the mirror, refusing to acknowledge anything behind him. But then the whisper came again, clearer this time, wet and trembling. "Keep your eyes forward." Ethan's vision blurred for a moment. He blinked rapidly, gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. The whisper didn't sound threatening. It sounded hungry. He swallowed hard and forced his voice out, though it shook. "Who's back there?" Silence, then barely audible, like breath passing through something rotten. "You didn't lock the door." Ethan's stomach twisted violently. He realized he didn't remember if he'd locked it. The rain, the darkness, his exhaustion. It was possible, no, easy, to forget. He slowly, trembling, reached for the lock button, and the moment he touched it, a hand touched his shoulder, soft, cold, the fingertips slightly wet. Ethan screamed and slammed both feet on the brakes. The car skidded violently, fishtailing across the slick asphalt before coming to a hard stop on the shoulder. The headlights illuminated nothing but a wall of fog. He sat frozen, too afraid to breathe, too afraid to turn around. His heart hammered against his ribs like it wanted to escape. He forced himself to look up at the mirror. At first he saw only blackness. Then, slowly, something in the darkness shifted. A shape, a pale outline, a head, a face slowly leaning forward, growing clearer in the reflection. Eyes, wide, sunken, completely wrong, like they weren't actually eyes, as if something had painted them onto a skull. The mouth opened in the reflection, stretching too wide, revealing too many teeth. Ethan didn't scream this time. He couldn't. His voice evaporated in his throat as those teeth kept spreading, cracking, widening. Then the thing lunged. Ethan threw himself out of the car door, hitting the wet ground so hard he knocked the wind out of himself. He scrambled up, slipping in the mud, and sprinted blindly into the fog. Behind him, he heard the car door slowly creak open. One slow step hit the ground, then another, then another. It was following. He couldn't see it. He didn't want to. He ran until his legs burned and his lungs screamed. He ran even when he fell face first into a ditch filled with freezing water. He clawed his way out, gasping, shivering, slipping on wet grass and mud. He didn't dare look back, but he heard it. Feet dragging, something wet slapping the road. A faint, hungry breathing. The fog parted for only a moment, enough for him to see a glowing red light in the distance. A gas station. He sprinted toward it, slipping twice, almost falling. The automatic doors slid open and he stumbled inside, collapsing to his knees on the cold tile floor. The cashier jolted in surprise and ran over to him. "Sir, are you okay?" Ethan couldn't speak. Tears streamed down his face without him realizing. His chest felt crushed, his hands shaking violently. The cashier helped him stand. "Come on, sit down. What happened? Were you in an accident?" Ethan managed to choke out. Someone was in my car." The cashier blinked. "What? Here? Now?" Ethan nodded weakly. The cashier hurried to the door, peering outside. "I don't see anyone." Ethan forced himself up, clutching the shelves for balance as he looked out through the glass. His car was parked at the pump. The driver's door was open. The back door was open. Rain dripped steadily from the roof. But the thing inside was gone. The cashier grabbed the phone. "I'm calling the sheriff." As the man dialed, Ethan stared outside, his breath shaking. His eyes drifted down to the pavement. There were wet footprints leading away from his car. Bare footprints. Long, thin, not shaped like human feet. They stretched across the gas station lot, then stopped. Completely stopped, as if the creature had simply vanished into thin air. Ethan kept staring at the last print. The edges of it rippled, like something invisible was standing there, breathing, waiting. And then, the automatic doors behind him slowly slid open on their own. Ethan spun around so fast he nearly slipped on the tile. The cashier froze mid-step, the phone still in his hand. The doors stood open. Nothing moved outside. No footsteps, no breathing, only rain, pouring, relentless. But Ethan felt it. That same pressure, that same cold. Not like air, but like something ancient pressing into the room. The cashier swallowed. "It's probably the sensor. Happens sometimes in storms." Ethan shook his head slowly. No, it's here." The cashier forced a smile, but his voice trembled. "Sir, sit down. You're..." The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then half the store went dark. A hum rolled through the building. Low, vibrating, wrong. Like something growling far beneath the floor. The cashier looked around nervously. "Hello, Becky? Is someone in the back?" No answer. The store had gone unnervingly silent. Even the storm outside sounded distant now, muffled, like the building was sinking deeper into something else, something colder. The lights flickered again, and for half a second, Ethan saw it. A shape standing just inside the doorway. Tall, too tall. Its limbs narrow and long like stretched shadows. No face, just a wet, glistening surface where features should have been. Then the light snapped back and it vanished. The cashier dropped the phone. What was... Did you see... Ethan couldn't answer. His throat was locked. His body felt frozen in place. The automatic doors closed, slowly, then opened again. Closed. Opened. Each time they opened, the cold deepened. The air tightened. The hum grew louder until the windows began to vibrate. The cashier backed up. "We need to go to the office. Now. There's a door that locks. Come on." But as he reached for Ethan's arm, he stopped suddenly. He stared past Ethan's shoulder, at something behind him. His face turned white. Ethan didn't want to turn. Every instinct in him screamed not to, but his body moved on its own, turning stiffly until he faced the aisle behind him. A dark, hunched silhouette crouched between the shelves. Long fingers curled around the metal rack. A wet sheen coated the floor beneath it. It slowly lifted its head, and it had no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin, and a single vertical slit running down the center of its face. The slit pulled open, not into a mouth, but into something else. A gash lined with thin, quivering tendrils that twitched like sensing organs. The tendrils stretched outward, tasting the air, tasting him. The cashier made a choking noise behind Ethan, stumbling back. The creature's tendrils shot in his direction instantly, snapping toward the sound like striking snakes. "Run!" Ethan yelled. Both men bolted down the nearest aisle. The sound behind them was nauseating. Wet slaps, scraping nails, bones cracking as something unfolded itself. They reached the back hallway. The cashier swiped his keycard, shoved Ethan inside the office, and slammed the door shut, locking it. The two stood gasping, staring at the door, waiting for pounding. But nothing came. The silence was worse. Rain pattered softly outside. The hum had stopped entirely. The air felt still, dead, stagnant. The cashier pressed his back against the wall and slid to the floor, shaking. What the hell was that? What is happening? Ethan couldn't answer. His chest felt squeezed tight. A single drop of water hit his shoulder. He slowly looked up. Another drop fell. And another, a wet drip. 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 Echoed softly from the ceiling tiles. The cashier noticed too. What is that? Is there a leak? A brown stain spread across one of the tiles above them, then another and another. More and more, forming rapidly, as if something soaked in blood was crawling along the ceiling, leaving a trail. The tiles bulged. A crack formed. Ethan grabbed the cashier. "Get to the wall, now!" They threw themselves aside just as the ceiling tile split open. A wet, pale hand dropped through. Fingers impossibly long, each ending in a black, curled claw. Another hand grabbed the edges, pulling. A head pushed through, upside down, neck twisted at an inhuman angle, face slit hanging open like a pulsing wound. It dropped from the ceiling. Not gracefully, not like something falling, more like something unfolding itself from a hidden place. The legs landed with a sickening crack. Bones snapped loudly as it straightened its limbs backward, then forward, adjusting them like a puppet learning how to stand. Its slit widened. The tendrils stretched outward, tasting, sensing. Then all the tendrils pointed directly at Ethan. He bolted for the door, but the creature moved faster than anything that size should. It slammed into him, pinning him against the wall hard enough to knock the breath out of him. The tendrils brushed against his cheek. Cold. Wet. Searching. The cashier screamed and grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall. He smashed it into the creature's back. The impact barely moved it. It only turned its head slightly, acknowledging the noise. But it was enough. Ethan slipped out from beneath its arm and ran for the office door. He flung it open and sprinted down the hallway, not checking if the cashier was behind him. He reached the main store area, or what used to be it. Every aisle was overturned. Lights hung sparking from the ceiling. Products were shredded and scattered, as if something massive had crawled through. The fog from outside had seeped inside, filling the store in a thick, unnatural layer. He couldn't see more than 6 feet in front of him. He didn't hear the cashier's footsteps. He didn't hear the creatures. Only the drip, drip, drip of something wet hitting the tile. He moved toward the front doors. The fog shifted. Something stepped out. It wasn't the creature. It was the cashier. Or what was left of him. His torso was intact, but everything below the ribs dragged behind him in a long smear of blood and intestines. His arms twitched violently, like he was trying to lift himself upright. His head trembled as he tried to raise it. His jaw moved. Run! Then something yanked him backward into the fog so fast his bones snapped on impact. Ethan bolted for the doors. They didn't open. He slammed into them, pounding, screaming, gasping. Behind him, the fog thickened. The hum returned. Louder, closer, right behind him. He hit the door again. Nothing. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass, tears leaking from his eyes. Outside, through the fog, he saw something move. Another person? A figure stood just beyond the pumps. He squinted. It looked like himself. Same boots, same jacket, same posture. It slowly lifted its head and smiled, with a slit that stretched from the forehead down to the throat. Ethan backed away from the door, shaking violently, and bumped into something solid. He didn't turn. He didn't breathe. A faint, damp whisper pressed against the back of his ear. You never checked the back seat. And the lights went out. The darkness swallowed everything. Ethan's breath hitched, shallow and rapid, the kind of trembling inhale that comes right before a scream. But he couldn't scream. He couldn't even turn. The thing behind him breathed in, slow and wet, dragging air across those quivering tendrils. He forced himself to move. One step, then another. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the floor, through his ribs, through his skull. His vision pulsed with each wave of sound, like his eyes were flickering in and out of existence. His hand brushed a metal rack. He grabbed it, pulling himself blindly through the darkness. Behind him, something dragged across the floor. Something heavy. Something that left a trail. He reached another aisle and crouched behind it. The hum abruptly stopped. The silence was worse than the sound. Then he heard something tapping the tiles. Tap, tap, tap. Not footsteps. Not claws. Tendrils. Feeling. Searching. One slid across the end of the aisle, brushing the floor. Another reached upward across the shelves, tasting the air. Ethan held his breath until his lungs screamed, praying, begging. It wouldn't sense him. The tapping stopped. Then it inhaled, a horrible, deep, wet inhale. It smelled him. Ethan ran. He tore through the aisles, knocking over anything he could reach. Boxes, metal bins, displays. Anything to slow the thing behind him. He didn't look back. He wouldn't survive if he did. Suddenly, something caught his ankle. He hit the floor hard. A tendril wrapped around his foot, yanking him backward with unbelievable force. His fingers scraped uselessly across the tile as he was dragged toward the fog. He kicked, twisted, screamed, and the tendril snapped tighter, cutting into his skin. Through the fog, he saw a shape approaching. Tall, bent, limbs spider-like. The slit pulsed open, wet and glistening, tendrils writhing in anticipation. Ethan kicked again, his heel connecting with something soft. The tendril loosened, just barely. He twisted onto his back, grabbed a metal price sign from the floor, and slashed at it with the sharp edge. The tendril sliced open, spraying a thick black fluid across the floor. The creature let out a sound unlike anything human. A high, metallic shriek mixed with something that sounded like a baby crying. Ethan scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward the back of the store. He crashed through the employees-only door and made it into the storage room. Rows of boxes, empty shelves, a single exit door at the far wall. He ran to it. It was chained shut. He grabbed the chain and pulled until his fingers bled. Nothing. Behind him, the humming returned. Quiet at first, then vibrating the entire room. The lights flickered. The fog seeped under the doorway. He spun around. The creature stood in the doorway, its body twisted and cracked from the earlier impact. Its arms hung loosely, like boneless sacks of skin. But the slit across its face, its horrible dripping slit, stretched open wider than ever. The tendrils shot out like a nest of snakes, slithering across the floor toward him. Ethan grabbed the nearest thing, a broken broom handle. Useless. He backed up until his spine hit the exit door. The creature's tendrils reached him. One wrapped around his wrist, another around his neck, another around his ankle. It pulled him forward slowly, savoring it, bringing him closer to the pulsing slit. He felt the tendrils poke into his mouth, exploring, tasting, pressing down his throat. Then he felt air. Cold, fresh air. The wind from outside. The exit door. It wasn't locked anymore. The chain lay broken on the floor. Not cut, not snapped. More like something had pulled it apart. Ethan didn't question it. He lunged backward, slamming through the door and tumbling into the rain. The wind hit him like a shock. He rolled down a small embankment, mud coating his arms. Behind him, the creature stood in the doorway. For the first time, it hesitated. Rainwater soaked its skin, and steam rose from its body as if the water burned it. The tendrils shriveled slightly. It stepped back, retreating into the darkness of the store. The door slowly closed. Ethan crawled backward on shaking hands, watching the door until it shut completely. The hum faded. The fog receded. The night returned to normal. He lay in the rain for several minutes, gasping, coughing, shaking, unable to move. Eventually he forced himself onto his feet and stumbled toward the road. Cars passed in the distance. A truck horn echoed faintly. He was alive. He flagged down the first vehicle he saw, a delivery van. The driver rolled down the window, eyebrows raised in shock. "Jesus, man, what happened to you? You look like you just crawled out of a grave." Ethan didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to speak of something no human should see. The driver helped him inside, turned the heater up high, and started toward town. Ethan looked back at the gas station. Dark, silent, completely normal from the outside. No broken doors, no overturned shelves, no blood, no fog, just a lonely building in the rain. The driver glanced at him. "You need the hospital? Police? Something?" Ethan swallowed hard. "No. Just take me home." The driver nodded and focused on the road. Ethan leaned his head against the window, exhausted, cold, barely conscious. As they drove away, he saw the station shrinking in the distance. Then, just before it vanished behind the trees, the lights inside flickered. Once, twice. Then one dark silhouette stepped slowly up to the glass door. It raised a long, twisted hand and waved. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them again, the station was gone. The road was empty. The rain kept falling. And the world somehow had the audacity to go on.